It is time to talk about strategy and leadership. This needs to be said. The left lacks strategic leadership. I don't think it's controversial. I think it's been indicative of the last few weeks of left infighting. We have plenty of voices, a cacophony of voices. We are amazing on Twitter, fabulous at Click Politics, but we don't seem to have a cohesive strategy to garner vital policy wins at this moment. This crisis that should propel these policies, not just to wide popularity, but into action. Nor do we have a unifying leader who knows how to wield power to achieve that strategy through leverage. And I don't mean a politician, an elected official. I mean a leader organizing pressure with people and negotiating with our political leaders, our allies, and those that we need to convince to win votes. We are up against one of the wiliest leaders in government, Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate, of course. After 4 years of subservience to Trump, he asserted himself this week and is trying to put the Republican Party back together for a post-Trump era. The better he succeeds, the less that we accomplish. So what is our strategy? And who are our leaders? This isn't about organizing protest as much as we want good protest. This is about managing power. Democrats are embarking on controlling at least half of the government with the White House and the House of Representatives. It will be years, possibly a generation, before we claw the Supreme Court back from radical conservative hands. And the Senate will be controlled one way or another by 1 or 2 votes after the Georgia runoffs. And we know how a few of our Democratic senators like to play both sides of the aisle. And of course, our country is in the deepest economic crisis of our lifetimes, in our parents' lifetimes. So to repeat this question, what is our strategy? Who are our leaders? Well, let's start with what we need to achieve right now. Just as Mitch McConnell is trying to unify the Republican Party, we need solidarity around our key objectives on the left and on the more global left. Watch how McConnell does his work. He is pressuring every Republican senator to let go of the fantasy that Trump was robbed of his election victory. So what is our version of unity? Well, I am trying to seize back that word from the Clintonites, who, of course, put it on us when they said that unity meant that the left has to fall in line behind them. When I say unity, I mean everyone across the Democratic coalition should fall in behind the progressive policies that this country clearly needs and wants in this crisis. We need to pressure every Democrat, starting with Joe Biden, to unite around real actions to relieve the suffering, prime the economy, reduce the inequity, and clean up, obviously, the greenhouse gases. We know the solutions. We just need the votes. And that's the strategy. How do you get the votes? But who can make this happen? Who among our allies has the juice to move Joe Biden and the middle-of-the-road Democrats? For decades, the progressive movement has been stifled, erased, and figuratively and quite literally killed off. Too much is at stake right now. Tens of millions of Americans face evictions in a few weeks, as do tens of millions of small businesses, which will also be forced to shutter with debt from loans and overdue bills. 300,000 Americans have died from COVID, our grotesque response to the pandemic. And now, how many more will die because they lack the health care to treat the effects of COVID? Or will go further into medical debt. And I haven't even mentioned the pre-existing debts our country faces: student loan debts, housing, credit, medical debts. This is not the time to be impulsive. This is a moment for us, a crisis for the movement, frankly, in which many of us should be thinking deeply about the leverage that we have right now and how to use it, and who is in a position to do so. How we can actually move the government into action, not incrementally or over a 5-year rollout, but immediately before we spiral into disarray. Some want to get attention, but we need less clickbait and more strategy. Medicare For All is the great lesson of this pandemic. Believe it or not, an already incredibly popular policy, now more Americans support it. But Congress is frozen. Getting it voted down is not a win. Splitting the left is certainly not a win. Yet even if we were to pass it tomorrow in Congress, the GOP would do what they did with Obamacare, tie up the movement possibly until 2035. Yet that doesn't mean we don't build a strategic vote campaign, as the National Nurses Union did with building a movement campaign to get co-signers in the Senate and in Congress. But there lies the secret sauce. Who are our leaders that can execute a real strategy of getting the votes for our goals? Which leaders will force lawmakers to move, or at least lean in and listen and negotiate? I will tell you, they are and have always been our labor leaders. One of our biggest challenges on the left is that most of us have never been in power. We have great intentions and little experience in actually using power effectively. And I say that because we've been getting crushed for decades by neoliberals, by conservatives, by McCarthyists, by anti-unionists. Getting a few dozen progressives elected up and down the ballot over the last 5 years has been extraordinary, but we do not have the majority. And we probably won't have it in time for the 2021 session. We know we don't have it. And we need the votes right now, like in a couple of weeks, to prevent folks from becoming homeless, stealing food to feed their children. Now, I really admire AOC for saying that she wasn't ready to be speaker, even though, of course, it is time for both Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to go. Bye-bye. But her point was more revealing. Congress is, of course, complicated. Mastering the levers of legislation takes years, and the loopholes. It's an institution with rules set and operated and controlled by those in power, aka Nancy Pelosi. And because power sees what's coming with this next generation, there is no succession plan in place that makes any sense. Here is AOC on the podcast Intercepted. Let's play that podcast clip real quick.
Isn't this grounds, though, to take a stand and say, no, I'm sorry, Nancy Pelosi should not be the speaker and Chuck Schumer should not be the leader?
Well, I do think that we need new leadership in the Democratic Party. I think one of the things that I have struggled with, I think that a lot of people struggle with, is the internal dynamics of the House has made it such that there's very little option for succession, if you will, and I think that one could just, I think it's easy for someone to say, oh, well, why don't you run? But the House is extraordinarily complex and I'm not ready. It can't be me. I know that I couldn't do that job. And so even conservative members of the party who think Nancy Pelosi is far too liberal for them don't necessarily have any viable alternatives, which is why whenever there's a challenge, it kind of collapses. And that is, I think, the result of just many years of.
So it would be great if a mainstream Democrat already experienced with power, for instance, was, say, radicalized by this current crisis. Somebody who would then sweep the movement's goals onto the table, right? Someone who has learned the system, but is now ready to fight for the major change we need. The way that RFK, Robert Kennedy, was later radicalized in life by the Vietnam War and the struggles at home in the late 60s, or even MLK's turn to socialism. That's using institutional power and knowledge for good, but no one is doing that. And of course, we can't sit around hoping that leader will emerge. But there is one part of the left that has the experience and the know-how that we need right now. Labor, labor, labor. Labor can lead our strategy of pressuring Democrats from Joe Biden on down to what needs to be done right now. And of course, we need and we must support the progressive labor leaders in bringing the rest of the labor movement around to what needs to be done. We start with our allies in labor to pressure other labor leaders who have been sitting on their hands, frankly. And simultaneously, our allies in labor also pressure our allies in Congress and those on the fence, and then directly to the most establishment Democrats, because here is a secret. The establishment can ignore groups. They can ignore Twitter. They can ignore progressive members of Congress, but they cannot ignore labor. Even the lawmakers who openly take it on, like Andrew Cuomo or Rahm Emanuel. Labor is the leverage. They need labor. But labor is also the star of this moment. How many of our teachers, nurses, flight attendants, postal workers, doormen and women, transportation workers, and domestic workers have been on the front lines for us during this crisis? How many of our frontline labor workers showed up and voted for Joe Biden and organized for Joe Biden? Build Back Better is not just a slogan. But Biden won't do anything. Congress will not do anything, as we are seeing, unless real organized power results, not just behind the scenes, but publicly, that they demand results. So we can be on the outside and amplify, and that's where our clicks are helpful. But labor has a seat at the table, and they have leverage, and they can negotiate. Remember Flight Attendants Union President Sarah Nelson looking the big airlines straight in the eye and protecting her members, and the companies as their businesses collapsed this year, and doing what many have been able to do, making Donald Trump cave? Sarah Nelson is an example of a real leader who sees power, understands power, and who can be central to executing the strategy of bringing Biden and other Democrats around to what we need to do in solving this crisis, in protecting humans, in protecting homes, making sure that families have food and jobs. Labor has the ability to use this crisis of the moment as leverage, and their members, workforce, as not only the face of this crisis, but the power that demands immediate relief, and the power that builds the strategic campaign to pass Medicare for All. Mitch McConnell will always find a way to roll us, block us, and gaslight us. And frankly, so will Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. But labor has and always will be the collective force that stops those in power and the rest of capital from killing us, literally killing us. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.